The NCAA and ESPN have reached a new 8-year media rights deal worth more than $115 million annually. That is roughly 3 times the annual value of the current 14.
More networks that you have involved, you would think that would raise the price.
The opportunity to perform on television dramatically affects that young athlete's potential marketability.
The spokesperson confirmed that an additional 25% or $28 million annually will help with production
7 years
and
with
marketing.
CBS, Fox, and NBC that begins in 2023. The multi-platform agreement believed to be the largest in the history of college athletics.
We have the 3 broadcast networks. That's over the air, not cable. Unprecedented.
I would hope that,
in this day and age.
that the NCAA would seize the initiative.
I think it does to an extent, but if a network wants exclusivity, they're going to have to pay a premium for exclusivity. So it might actually be worth more money to go with one individual rights holder.
The economic rights and other basic individual rights of student athletes and of coaches across this country are at stake.
I'm Marissa Lindemann, and I'm here with
John Schrader.
John Schrader. Can you tell us what your position here at the college is?
I will. I am Associate Professor of Broadcasting and Sports Media in the College of Journalism and Mass Communications at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
I'm just going to start out by asking you, why would a college want to create any sort of financial partnership with a broadcast outlet?
Well, if you're talking about the Husker Sports Network and the University of Nebraska's athletic department selling its media rights, you do it because it's very lucrative. The Play Fly Sports pays a lot of money to get the opportunity to broadcast sports. So for the athletic department, it's a revenue producer, and for the media partner, it's a revenue producer. They sell commercials, and hopefully they make enough money to make up for the media rights they've charged, or that they've paid for it. So it's all about the money.
And when you say it's all about the money,
Sure.
how much money are we talking about here?
Well, I believe the University of Nebraska deal is like 15 years for about $300 million with Play Fly Sports. So math was not my major, but I think that's around $20 million a year. That's not too shabby.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
How has those sorts of partnerships, how have they evolved over time?
Well, it used to be a lot more, separate. The radio stations would pay the rights fees, and there weren't a lot of strings attached. The radio station or the television entity would pay for the rights and then broadcast the games, and there wouldn't be a lot of play back and forth. Now, as it's evolved over the years, the athletic department or the club or the team or the conference has a lot of say in who broadcasts. The individuals who do the broadcasting, they have a lot more say in the content that's shared. They have, I wouldn't say they have veto power, but they certainly use some exertion over the audience, what's going on, right? You assume that the job is to tell the story and to tell it fairly and accurately. And of course, when you're broadcasting live sports, you do it all in real time. But what happens in reality is that the partners, even though they've gotten a lot of money, let's say John pays Marissa $20 million a year, right? So I'm paying you $20 million a year. I should be able to do this the way I like because I'm paying you a lot of money. But what happens is the people who are getting the $20 million also exert some leverage over the people who are paying it because they want their story to be told almost perfectly, and they want the sharp edges to be rounded more. They want the warts to be non-existent. They don't want any negativity to be shared.
So what does that look like when a negative story comes out? Is it filtered?
It's not filtered, and sometimes it's ignored. And that's where the ethics get really, really serious, is when you just are willing to overlook something, overlook part of it. And again, I think some people would argue that the relationship between broadcasters and their partners is not really journalism, right? And it isn't really. It's a business partnership. The journalism part comes in when we're telling the audience, we're sharing with the audience what's going on. That's the journalism part of what we do in broadcasting. It's not, our relationship is not journalism relationship. Ours is a business relationship. I'm paying you, or you're paying me lots of money, and I'm broadcasting, or you are, whatever the relationship is, whatever the partnership is. The journalism part of it is telling the truth, telling it honestly, letting the audience know what's happening and why it's happening. And so that's where the conflict comes in. Because I'm a journalist and I want the audience to know what's going on. You're my partner. You don't want the audience to know what's going on because it's a little less flattering than we'd like it to be. Or maybe we don't think it's any of their business. And so that's when our conflict comes in our business relationship.
So as a consumer of this media watching this partnership take place, should I have any concerns?
You should, but I think what happens is most people don't. Most people don't think of it. They don't think of that. They think that I'm broadcasting your games, so I'm just going to tell you what's going on and I'll just take it. I'll just take it. It's whatever you tell me, I'll just take it. I don't think most people think that broadcasting or sharing the information of what's going on the game or a talk show or whatever it is, they don't think of it as a journalism job. They think of it as just talking about sports.
So if they're not that really, the audience isn't really that concerned about it, it seems like.
Some people aren't.
Some people aren't.
Right.
But for those who are, is there any way that these networks can kind of safeguard against the audience getting a negative impression?
Apparently not. And again, I think if you look at the NFL as the perfect case study in partnerships and the conflicts and the considerations in partnerships, because again, NBC, CBS, Disney, Amazon, Fox, they pay billions, hundreds of billions of dollars collectively to broadcast the NFL games, and they're willing to let the NFL tell them who can broadcast the games, or at least okay them. They're willing to let the NFL sort of coerce them into not talking about things like concussions, like spousal abuse committed by their players, like drug suspensions by their players. You don't hear people on television talk about that kind of stuff, do you? You don't. It's because the NFL has sort of put the thumb down on them. And you know how they do it? It's pretty simple. They say, I know I'm taking billions of dollars from you, but I'm going to get those billions of dollars, and I'll get them from X, who's not part of it now. If you, Y, aren't going to toe the line here, I'll get the rights from X because they'll pay that too, and they've promised that they're not going to do any of that stuff that you're doing. Does that make sense?
So it's competition.
They force it. They force the competition element into the coercion, and I think that's kind of a strong word, but I don't think it's too strong. Into the coercion of what they want you to talk about, or really what they don't want you to talk about.
So if I were a young professional going into
Yep.
this field, what advice would you give me?
Not worry about that stuff. Don't worry about that until you have to, right? But I think we try to convince people that when they're getting into the business that your job is to tell the story, use facts, tell us exactly what's going on, be as factual as possible and honest and relative to what's important, right? All the kinds of things we learn as journalists. What is it? What's happening? Where's it happening? Who's it happening to? Why is it happening? Right? And give us some context. So we try to teach them that, and then as we get deeper and deeper into it, we realize that some of our partners don't want us to be quite that honest. They don't want us to be quite that factual. And so we're not. And I have to tell you, I've worked for teams. I broadcast for many years for a college football team, and there were things I knew I could talk about and not. I did professional soccer for a Major League Soccer team for many years. I knew there was some things I could talk about and some things I couldn't. For me, thankfully, I knew where the line was, and so I wasn't being dishonest or lying, and they knew that, and they knew that I would be as honest as I could and as faithful as I could to what was really going on without jeopardizing any individuals in the organization.
So what I'm hearing is it really comes down to the individual's moral compass and how they want to navigate that situation.
Well, and sometimes you sort of have to check that moral compass at the door. I think most people who do this want to be honest, and they are honest, and they go as far as they can to be honest. There are times when the business relationship gets in the way of the storytelling. And that's really kind of what happens. And the business relationship is sacrosanct more so than the storytelling part of it.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
I mean, you can paint a pretty dark, dystopian picture of this, and I think for those of us who are in it, it can feel not quite dystopian, but it can feel sort of like you really want to go there and you can't. I mean, it is just sports after all, right? It is just entertainment, not just, it is entertainment and it's sports. But I think when it comes to the really important issues of a sport, a league, a conference, whatever it is, an institution, that I think we need to be allowed to share the truth, even if it can be unflattering. And oftentimes we're not allowed to because, again, the business gets in the way of the storytelling.
Do you think that this could ever lead to a sort of monopolization of the industry?
Well, I don't know exactly what you mean by monopolization, but it's an oligarchy for sure. There are only a handful of people in the business to begin with, right? And so, there's only 4 or 5 competitors in the business. They are competing with each other, but they're all willing, like in the NFL's case, all of the people who are competing with each other to broadcast the games are in partnership with the same entity and are playing by the same rules. So in a sense, it is monopoly, and oftentimes it's unspoken. It's not like they say, don't go there, you just know you're not supposed to go there. Or if you are, or as it was explained to me once by a gentleman who's a journalist, he works for ESPN, I'll use his name, Howard Bryant. He says that even in the journalism part of ESPN, because ESPN's in a partnership with the NFL, they broadcast the games, they pay billions of dollars to broadcast the games on both ABC and on ESPN. But almost everybody in the business knows how far they can go, and everybody in the business knows that if they talk about something or they report something, that they know they'll get a call from either Roger Goodell or Adam Silver from the NBA or Rob Manfred from Major League Baseball, or their bosses who just got a call from Rob Manfred or Adam Silver or Roger Goodell. So they know after a while they can't go those places because they don't want to get that call from the commissioners or their boss telling them to back off. So it becomes a chilling effect. Is that blah, blah, blah? Yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you
you're
for
welcome.
today.